So hip impingement, what it is it's when there's a mismatch between the shape between the ball and the socket. And what happens is, particularly in athletes who do a lot of hip flexion, the misshapen bones come into contact with one another, or there's a collision between the misshapen ball or the misshapen socket, and that can sometimes lead to damage within the hip joint. What we typically see is these tend to develop in kids that are fairly active when they're younger, during the growth spurt era. So around 10, 11, 12, kids that are active in soccer or any sort of hip flexion activities, such as running, basketball, tennis, soccer, where there's constant hip flexion, that can lead to this developmental abnormality, particularly with the impingement, and then that can occur with kids that are playing soccer. You know, the more you train, the more you work the hips, the potential higher chances you have for developing this. But it's also important to mix in different sports. You're working different muscle groups. You're not just constantly using the hip flexors if you're just a one-sport athlete in soccer. It's very important to get kids involved in multiple sports, so multiple muscles are utilized to kind of avoid injury in one specific area of the body and develop the body kind of completely.
Would stretching help at all, or is that just something that we should not just naturally do with this injury, specific injury?
So with hip impingement, some of the ways you can prevent or avoid further injury if you do have impingement is stretching, particularly before playing and after, but also working on strengthening the glutes, strengthening the core. That can help stabilize the hip joint and somewhat offload the hip joint, such that the hip doesn't experience as much contact forces, and helps eliminate the pain.
Is this something that you're seeing more commonly over time now?
We are, and it's more commonly diagnosed, so we're now treating it more often. And obviously, with the majority of orthopedic injuries, particularly with athletes, the mainstay of treatment is non-operative management and physical therapy, rehabilitation, conditioning of the hip. When that fails, then we start to talk about hip arthroscopy and surgery for this issue. And now that we're recognizing this condition more and more, subsequently what we're doing is more and more surgeries for this type of injury, if you want to call it.